Hello and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hi, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Tom Dillon. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm marvellous.
Good. Of course you are.
How are you, Helen?
I'm very well. I'm aware that I always say good morning because we always record these podcasts in the morning. So
I think that's fine. I don't think people will be offended by you saying good morning to them.
I don't know what time of day they're listening to it. It just struck me.
Well, we don't know what time zone they're in either. We've had our stats recently. I think 24 different countries.
Wow.
So America, India, Australia,
Canada.
Yeah. So, you know, you're going to be wrong most of the time, aren't you? So
Yeah. We can't tell our listeners only listen in the morning.
So today we are talking about a tool that we might use in coaching. Tell us what that tool is, Helen.
It is journaling.
Journaling.
Yes.
I like the idea of journaling. I don't journal. I tried journaling. I'm very good at starting things, not so good at carrying on with them.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm absolutely the same.
Oh, it's not just me then.
No. And I'm going to explore a little bit about the different ways to journal and then how we might use it in the coaching room.
Yeah, I've got a way of journaling as well, which suits my personality. So we'll talk about that as well. But I'll let you have your say and see where that takes us.
So there are lots and lots of different ways of journaling. For some, it might be keeping a diary. And I know some people will keep a diary every day and have done for their whole life. I can't do that. And you're
That sounds like a limiting belief.
Well, I've tried.
I can't do that.
I've tried lots of times. In fact, when we moved house, I found a diary under the bed. And there's about 4 entries in it.
What year was it from?
It was only from the middle of last year.
Oh, okay.
But there was about 4 entries in it and then nothing. No, it was the year before. Oh, my goodness. Yes, so just to prove a point. So for some, it's keeping a diary. For others, it's writing a daily line or affirmation. Some people keep a dream journal about their dreams. Others make plans or lists. Some people use a journal to reflect on their day or their week or their month or even their year. Some people keep a gratitude journal, which is arguably slightly different, but it's still there. My cousin has a line a day journal.
Okay.
So it's just one line every day. And it's the same day every year. So it's a 5-year journal. And so you can look back on each day as you continue to fill it. You can look back on what you were doing a year ago and 2 years ago and your line for that day over 5 years. It might be that you write in longhand, or bullet journaling has become a thing where you use lots of images and it's lists on, just bullet points and affirmations and stickers, and it's very creative.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that seems to get away from journaling.
Well, for me, it does get away from journaling, and for me, I think it would be a form of procrastination. I'm journaling. Well, I'm not really. I'm just putting off doing something else by creating pictures.
I think it's one of those things, and as we are exploring, and as we have said, journaling in its purest form isn't going to work for everyone.
No.
So
absolutely.
actually, if someone can do bullet point journaling and it works for them, great. Let's not take it away from them.
Absolutely. What I'd like to share today is a form of journaling that I found useful eventually, because I had a couple of false starts on this, and that I encourage my clients to try. So when I was doing some personal development work, at quite a difficult point in my life, I was introduced to this form of journaling, and it comes from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and it's called in her book Morning Pages. Some people call it morning writing, but basically it's 3 A4 pages of longhand. It's a stream of consciousness. So the idea is get up or not, stay in bed, first thing in the morning, grab a notebook and pen and write for 3 pages and just write and write and write and write and write. And it takes about 20 minutes when you get into the flow of it. So it's not long, but it's unedited thinking, getting all your stuff out of your head and onto paper. And it was really originally designed or put out there by Julia Cameron as a way to reconnect with the creative part of yourself. Now, I'll be honest, I struggled with this because, every day, first thing in the morning, as you know, I'm not really in a thinking space in the morning, but actually that's entirely the point. So on my third attempt, I managed to continue to do this for a few weeks, actually, which was quite something. And what I found was that it really cleared my head in the morning. When I first started doing this, I was living on my own and I was working on my own, so I didn't really have someone around to bounce ideas off that was just there. So it would help me reorder my thoughts. It would help me sometimes create a massive to-do list if that's what was in my head, but also it might help me clarify my thinking. So if I woke up, quite often I'd wake up and start writing and it would be like I had a really weird dream last night. Most of my entries started like that. But then I might be pondering a question, and by the end of my 3 pages, I'd have answered my own question. So I find it really interesting that it brings out some inner thoughts, helps you to reflect, that kind of thing.
So I have a question. You said
Yes.
3 pages of A4.
Yes.
Is this 3 pages of A4 every day?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that's why it feels like a
I'm
big
not doing that.
task. But
That sounds like a
it,
job.
It does sound like a big task. What I would say is if you're really struggling with it, just give it a go and see where you get, because it's pushing past those stuck points in those 3 pages that actually bring about the revelation. So a bit like when we're coaching, if we were to say to someone, what options do you have here? And they said, I've got this A and B, and we just carried on coaching around A and B, they wouldn't get to the really great generative thinking. When we ask what else and what else and what else could you do in different ways, we get to really juicy stuff. And that's what happens with doing the 3 pages and pushing through.
So you said this is the artist's way.
Yes.
And it's to engage with the creative side of you.
Mm-hmm.
So when is it useful for coachees to engage with it?
I think whilst it was originally used to connect with that creative side of you, what I and many other people have discovered, because I learnt this as well as part of my initial coach training, that it was a tool that could be used. And so lots of people had tried it, lots of people on my coaching cohort had tried it, and it was just really useful in processing thinking and getting all of the whirling thoughts from your head onto paper, and suddenly you could then start the day a little clearer, or something that was bothering you, or just a dilemma would become either more clear, or suddenly it didn't matter so much, because you'd got it out of your head and onto paper and got some perspective and clarity. So for me, it was allowed me to start my day fresh. Now I don't do it now. I don't feel the need to do it now. So I have the opportunity to talk things through more, to have coaching when I need. However, if something is still on my mind, I do often sit down and just write about it. And if you just sit and write for 20 or 30 minutes, I just think it's really helpful to work through things and to get to a good place, or even an action step. And in many ways, it is similar to coaching, that you're just getting those thoughts out and you're allowed, the paper's listening to you effectively. I don't think it's the same as coaching at all, but there is that element to it. And a friend of mine used it when she was going through breast cancer treatment. She said to me that she would wake up at 4 a.m. with all these thoughts, as you can imagine. And, she didn't have someone there that she could wake and talk to about that. So she would grab a pen and paper and journal for...
Yeah, no, I think that's actually, in terms of where it might be useful, I think that ruminating at 4 a.m. and just being alone with your thoughts when the rest of the world's asleep would be good, wouldn't it? Just to get it out of your head.
Yeah.
Good. Now, how does this suggestion of journaling to your coachees fit with the non-directive side of coaching?
That's a really good question. And it's a tricky element when we're aiming for a non-directive space. But I think it can be so useful, so helpful, because we know that so much thinking goes on outside of the coaching room between sessions. And that magic that can happen, we talked about in the solution-focused approach, when we start the thinking process in the coaching space, it doesn't stop at the end of 60 minutes or 90 minutes, however long you're coaching for. All of that is being processed when we leave the coaching room. So journaling in between times can allow the thinking to continue, can help the client capture those new thoughts, new ideas, also can help them see how they're changing through the process.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it helps them track new things that they may then wish to bring back to coaching. So I see it as another way to facilitate their journey. So I might, as you know, our listeners might not, I do sometimes like to set a little bit of homework in between sessions. And that's not me saying, I think you should do this about your problem, or I've got this journaling task, I want you to do it. I'm introduce it as a tool that can be useful for some people to help them process their thinking. And Tom, as you leave the coaching session today, your thinking may well continue, hopefully it will, and I'd like to introduce a tool that could help you, or an exercise that could help you to continue that between sessions, and you might find it useful to bring back some of those thoughts in our next session. I'll explain how the journaling works and then leave it up to them if they want to work with it. And some clients jump on it and use it straight away and they're like, this is amazing. And other clients don't use it at all. And some clients text me 3 years later and go, oh, that thing you told me about journaling, it works. So, everyone's different. But as I say, I'm not telling them what to do about their problem. So I'm not problem solving. I'm offering them another avenue to process what's going on in the coaching room. So for me, I think that's okay.
Yeah. Again, it's just another useful tool that we're introducing, isn't it, into the coaching room that may be helpful to some, it may not to others.
Absolutely. And I think going forward, it helps give them some self-efficacy, give them some autonomy in the future as another way of thinking about their thinking if they're not having coaching any longer or having a break from coaching or something like that.
Good. And what interaction would you have with your coachee when they return to the coaching room around their journaling?
I think I'd allow that to be their decision. So if they brought something up that came up in journaling. So one of the things that I usually suggest is that they don't actually read back their thoughts, that they're done. In fact, I think one of the things that stops people journaling is, I've got this really beautiful notebook and I don't want to spoil it. Do you buy all these notebooks and you don't want to write in them because I might not write neatly enough or whatever. So I usually say, on your way home, go to the supermarket and get a cheap A4 notepad and just write and let it happen. Sometimes people say, well, what if I run out of things to say? And I've got loads of people who just go, oh, Helen told me to write, so I've got to write. Write. And that's what they write for about 30 seconds, and then the words flow.
Yeah.
If they bring something up and they say, oh, I was journaling and this came up, then that might stimulate a coaching conversation. But I wouldn't ask them what they journaled. Yeah. They'll often come back and go, I didn't do that. Or, like I say, they'll come back and go, I did that and it was really useful. So I don't particularly instigate that conversation around what happened in their journal. No. I just think it's another way that they can process what's going on for them.
So what would you ask them about whether they've journaled or not?
Sometimes I will ask them if they've journaled, if they've tried it, and see what comes up. But, oftentimes I'll just check in with them and they might mention it, and then we'll be on to what would you like to talk about today? Yeah. And I think it's useful. I don't think it's necessary to delve into particularly.
Okay. Good. It's just as you were talking a moment ago about not wanting to spoil notebooks, I think my relationship with journaling is evidenced by the amount of notebooks I have with 1 or 2 pages filled in. I like notebooks. I like a nice notebook, but yeah, I'm not too consistent. But I think that's just part of my personality, that I'm good at starting things off, and then it tails off. My enthusiasm tails off. And that idea of writing 3 pages of A4 in the morning is, a little bit daunting.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think just writing something is better than writing nothing for some people, if they've got a lot on. And I class it in many ways a little bit like meditation. And I think it was the Dalai Lama said this. I apologise if I'm wrong. That if you don't have time to meditate for half an hour a day, meditate for an hour a day.
Okay, 6 pages.
Because there's something about meditation that clears your mind in a way and allows you to deal with the other, 23 hours, that is powerful. And I think journaling does the same thing. Rather than just getting up and going headlong into your day, having some time to get your thoughts out can allow you to start it off.
And
well.
How do you feel about technology?
Well, that's really interesting because this has always been suggested as being pen and paper. I do know some people that will sit on a laptop and type out their thoughts. But as I understand it, the neuroscience is that when we write with pen and paper, we connect with a different part of our brain. Like the different parts of our brain light up when we're writing with pen and paper, as opposed to typing. And I think that it can access more of that creative side. If pen and paper isn't working and, you want to type it out, then that might be better than doing nothing.
Yeah. Good. Well done. Excellent stuff.
So you mentioned something that you wanted to contribute to the journaling conversation earlier.
Yes, and it's not journaling in the sense of doing a daily journal and carrying on with that. Actually, it's much more suited to my personality. So it's really the work of James Pennebaker, who was an American social psychologist, or still is an American social psychologist. So his work over the last 40 years has been focused on the written word, or typed word. He doesn't mind which you do. You can have your fingers on a keyboard, that's fine by him. But he's realised, evidence through his research, that people who've experienced trauma, who take to expressive writing and committing their thoughts to paper, can be positively influenced by that process. So it's quite short term, so you don't have to keep writing about your trauma for days on end, because that could be problematic. But the idea is that you would just write for around 15 to 20 minutes a day over 4 days. Now, it doesn't have to be consecutive 4 days, so you can have a gap in between. But there's something about, that's the optimal. So there's something about having written again and again about the experience for 4 days can have a really transformational impact on the way that people think about the trauma. So it's just allowing them to get everything out about it out on paper. So a bit like you were saying, it's some release for them to get it down and out of their heads. And perhaps because you're revisiting it and thinking about it again differently the next time you come to it, it allows you to get all of it out there, and you perhaps things might come to mind that you've not thought about before. But it's a way of, and I've done it myself with stuff that's bothered me, and trauma. Is it trauma? It was having an impact on me in terms of negative thinking and things like that. So in that sense, it was still with me. So troubling. And I wrote about it and did that 4 separate occasions of writing. I think that I missed a day, but then returned to it and was able to carry on writing. And it has changed the way I engage with that experience. So it's had a real, it's not so troubling anymore, because I've managed to get everything out there and really explore how I think about it and how I had been thinking about it in an unhelpful way. So it can be really powerful. Now, obviously, we're straying into the realms of therapy, but James Pennebaker offers this out as an exercise for anyone to do, not people that are just engaged in therapy, but just as a way of people helping themselves to overcome difficult circumstances and to give fresh thought to them and get it down on paper. So yeah, very short term, and there's no requirement to write so many pages. It's just to continue writing, again, that stream of consciousness for 15 to 20 minutes. So it has a limit. We don't have to do an hour. We don't have to do 2 hours. We just have to do it 15 to 20 minutes and make sure that we do it for 4 days.
Yeah. So this is research-based as well?
Yeah. A lot of research over a long period of time. So it is demonstrated that it does have a positive impact. And I speak from personal experience that when I've done it, it has worked.
So for me, writing 3 pages of A4 is about 20 minutes. So it's probably about the same. Isn't it funny that you didn't like 3 pages, but happy with 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And it probably works on the same...
Maybe I write really slowly.
Maybe you do. Maybe.
I remember when I was 10, I did write really slowly. And I used to do, was it cursive they call it? The joined up writing.
Yeah. Or joined up writing.
Joined up writing.
Yeah.
So I used to do joined up writing. But so my teacher realised that, Miss Cano, her name was, she realised that I was writing really slowly. Well, I wasn't finishing my work. So she came and watched me. So I had to write out, that used to be called Tommy when I was little. My name is Tommy Dillon. I had to write that out for her while she watched. And she said, yeah, you're taking your pen off the page every time you finished a letter.
Even though it's joined up.
Even though it's joined up writing. Okay. So I probably do write quite slowly. And now when I do joined up writing, it's a scrawl. I can't read it.
But that's fine, isn't it? Because it's your thinking that is the important thing.
But no, when I actually did that exercise, I typed.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that idea of writing 3 pages probably does bother me a little. But typing for 20 minutes is not a problem for me.
So I would imagine that the benefits that you get from the journaling that I've described are similar because it is that free flow of consciousness. And, some people do it every day for the rest of their lives in the same way that some people do keep a diary. But I think that what you're describing is more realistic for a lot of people. Yeah,
and I think there's an extra element to it that sits outside of the coaching room, in that you don't have to say it out loud to anyone else.
Yeah.
It's just for yourself.
Yeah.
So you can just type it out there and just delete it.
Yeah.
And no one's ever going to see it. So you can actually really express how you felt about it or what you feel about it. And no one's going to sit in judgment of you. And even, the coaching room is a very non-judgmental place, and we reassure our clients that we are being non-judgmental. But I think everyone that comes into the coaching room is going to have a slight filter of what they can say out loud to the coach for fear of being judged.
Yeah.
So I think expressive writing, which is what James Pennebaker called his exercise, has that guarantee that no one else is going to sit in judgment of what you've written. Because if you were writing it, you could just burn it. If you're typing it, you can just delete it. So it has that protection, I guess, of people's identity. And
I actually do often say to people, if you get to the end of your notebook, or even if you don't, just throw it on the fire. Not an electric fire, that would be weird. But get rid of it. Nobody else has to read it. You don't even have to read it.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Helen. That's been really good. And actually, it's got me to revisit the idea of journaling. I don't think it's ever going to be for me to do on a daily basis.
Me either.
No. So, but as you say, I was with a coachee yesterday who talked about his journaling, and he finds that really useful. It's not something that I've instigated with him. It's just something he does anyway. And he has things that he writes about every day, and he finds that really useful. So it will be for some people. So good to be able to offer it to people as a way of thinking about things. Thank you, Helen. Let's look at what we're doing next time. What are we doing next time?
We're going to talk a little bit about a topic that sometimes comes to coaching, which is finding more meaning and purpose in our lives.
How wonderful. I shall look forward to that. So if you want to make sure you catch every episode, do subscribe to our podcast. And if you have any questions for our question and answer slot that we have occasionally, feel free to send them in. Any questions you have about coaching, and we'll be happy to answer them on the podcast. If you want to remain anonymous, you can do that too. But we'd love to hear from you. So thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.